Morning, everybody. Well, I got a little job to do today on the old backhoe. It's going to be a little bit interesting. I don't think it'll be too bad. I'll show you what I got. So I got a little bit of an exhaust leak on this old girl. You can see the exhaust is loose, and I think what's happened is I was loading a hay rake with it, and it hit the exhaust, and I think it's just a flange fitting. But I'm going to pull the hood off first. But you can see I got the front end loader up, and what I've been thinking about doing this for a long time, but I'm going to split a piece of pipe and put in here for a safety, so I can jam it in there between there and the frame, and I'll wire tie it up to that. Just because working under here, those hydraulics can bleed off and can cause a pretty serious injury. So I'll show you what I got on this pipe deal. So what I'm going to do is just take this piece of pipe right here and split it. Cut it the right length, 32 inches, and I'll just split that pipe right in half, and then I can put it right up in there for a stop on that hydraulic cylinder. All right, so I'm gonna use this grinder with cutoff wheel in it. I always try to use double eye protection with the face shield and safety glasses. See, once in a while you'll see these wheels, they'll just fly apart. Good friend of mine, when I was working up in Wyoming, he had one of those come apart. He had a face shield, and it deflected, and it still gave him a pretty good cut on him, but without the face shield, it would hurt him a lot worse. So here we go. Well, that wasn't too bad. I'm just going to use a straight edge and try to get exactly 180 out of that, so that it split that pipe, pretty much right into it. Doesn't have to be exact. Well, that was quick and easy. I used one whole wheel to make that cut, but it was simple, better than a torch. So I think with that, I can just go put it up as a stop on that cylinder. I'll show you how it works. All right, show you what I did on this pipe. Just put it on this cylinder here, use some plastic zip ties there just to hold it in place. I've raised it up. I'm just going to keep an eye on that. If I see it settling down, I'll try to keep the hydraulics up on it. I don't want to rely on this. This is just kind of an extra added safety. So what I'm going to do now is just get this hood pulled off. And what I'm going to do is just unbolt the hood, raise it up some. I think I can reach up in there and figure out what's going on with that exhaust pipe. All right, so I got the hood off, got the exhaust muffler off. I'll show you what happened. So here's the muffler, exhaust manifold. This piece right here that's got a flange on it, the muffler hooks onto, broke right there. I don't have anything to lose. I'm gonna pull this guy off and try to weld it. I've got some nickel rod. Do you have great luck welding cast on exhaust manifolds? Not really, but I'm not gonna be out anything, so I'll give her a try. So I'm using a chrome socket instead of an impact socket. The sidewall's a little bit thinner. In a perfect world, you should use an impact socket, but for this, I think this will work better. Boy, we love air tools, don't we? Well, there's the exhaust manifold. We'll go see if we can figure out how to get her welded up. All right, this turned out to be a lot bigger project than what I thought. I'll show you what I got here. So this is the exhaust manifold, broken. So this is the neck that goes onto the muffler, and it was broke right there. So I'm gonna have to weld that back on. Of course, cast, anybody knows anything about welding, it's very difficult to weld. I've got some cast iron rod that's a high nickel content. My stepdad's has been a welder most of his life, and he's done a lot with cast. He said just keep it as cold as we can. So we'll do my best. I'll show you guys what I got going. So I'm just gonna tack it in place first and try to get it square, and there's gonna be some gaps, but I don't know, pretty tricky. See how it goes. Got a pretty big gap on this side. Seems to be welding okay. So I was told just to keep it as cold as possible, so I'm just making a bunch of smaller welds and then just clean them up as we go. Yeah, that stuff's pretty tricky to weld. I hope it works. Well, that's the clamp that goes around. I just want to make sure that the way that's getting welded is going to work. And it looks like it is. So they say the trick is keeping it pretty cool. So I'm just, touching it. Cold with the touch and cold welding, I don't know, I probably should have a pen gun, but I'm just gonna keep working it real slow. Got a big gap on this side, it's gonna be a pain in the neck. I'm gonna let that cool a little bit. I've got to work on this clamp. It's got a broken bolt, so I'm gonna take a torch and heat it up. Just let that cool for a minute. So I got a broken bolt on this guy, so I'm hoping I can just heat that up with a torch, get some vice grips or something on there, and screw that bolt out. These exhaust manifolds and stuff, these clamps get all hot and cold and rusty, so they can be a giant pain in the neck. So all I'm gonna do is just put this in the vise, get the torch and heat the nut itself up. Hopefully I can grab some vice grips and I'll just screw that out. See if we'll get lucky on this. it was just barely in there, so it come right out. Well, did get lucky for once today. Better lucky than good anytime, right? I think that bolt, or that nut, I mean, in that clamp is just fine, so I'll just have to get a new bolt for it, and hopefully that'll work. I'm gonna put this in a little different position and try to get this side welded up. It'll be, I think, a little bit easier position-wise for the weld. Sticky. I'm trying to have that as cold as I can on the weld setting. Don't know if that's right or not. I guess we'll know sometime. Probably a little hotter than I should have got it. We'll give it a second to cool right there. Not turned out too bad. Got a lot of frosting and stuff in there. Got a little nick on this flange. I'm just going to put a little weld in for when I cut the muffler off. So I got a few nicks in this flange right here where the clamp goes around for the muffler. But when I would cut it off, that muffler was rusted on there so stinking bad. So I'm just putting a little bit of weld and polishing them up, letting this other main weld cool. You know, one thing about this, it's not really holding any weight. I mean, that muffler has a little bit of, you know, it's 3 or 4 feet high or whatever. It's got a little bit of leverage, but not like it's holding something heavy or got a lot of stress on it. The ground is important. So that's what I ended up doing to that muffler to get it off that casting. All these little splits I can weld up, so I think I'm going to kind of work on that, reshape that, give that exhaust a minute to cool. What I'm going to do is bend all these back and fit it on the manifold before I put it back on the tractor. I mean, this is an old muffler, but the integrity of it's still pretty good. Worst part about this, I beat the crap out of this bell on it. I'm gonna have to probably heat that up with the torch and reshape that so it'll work on that clamp. Show you guys how this clamp works. It's not real precision. That clamp just goes around that flange. As it tightens up, it just pulls it onto that exhaust manifold. And it's not perfect, but I think it's gonna work out just fine. I think now what I'm gonna do is finish welding that exhaust manifold back up. I'm gonna have to run into town and get a new bolt, and I need to weld all these joints up on this muffler. So I might do that, but I don't know if you guys can see it, but I've split this when I tried to get that off because it was rusted on there so bad. So I'm just gonna use a torch and weld them splits back up. Make sure that it fits okay on the exhaust manifold. But I think it's gonna work. I'm a little bit more optimistic than I was an hour ago. Well, I think I'm going to call that good on that manifold. I'm going to... Oh, well, you guys see it kind of in the sun there. But that turned out pretty dang good for an old hillbilly welder. But I'm going to just fit that muffler to it. Shoes, I think we can start going back together. So what I'm gonna do is put this clamp on, get that on. I'm gonna put this clamp on, get that fitted up there. Make sure the clamp's gonna fit. Then I've just gotta run to town and get a new bolt. Kind of the caveman way of fitting things, but I think at the end of the day, it's gonna work. I think we're making progress here. Probably what I should do next is weld them cracks up with the torch. So what I'm using for filler material is just a pretty high quality wire, basically what I use for fencing. I've done a little bit of this with it, seems to work pretty good. That auction's a little touchy. Do a lot of welding with the torch on these mufflers just because they're thin and rusty, and seems to work. You know, this torch weld's one of those deals that I don't do it enough to stay up on it. About the time I get finished with the job, it looks pretty good. Alright, well that didn't turn out too bad. I'll show you guys how that weld looks like. So that's one of them. That's another one. Not too bad for a rusty tractor muffler, huh? I ended up having 3 childs. Oh, there's the other one. Not too bad. I think I've got to reach up in there and kind of polish some of that, weld out, make sure it'll fit on that manifold. So, all right, got the old backhoe put back together. It's pretty simple, just to bolt that exhaust manifold back on and put the muffler back on. Started it up, doesn't seem to have any leaks. So it turned out pretty good. This was loose when I hit it with that rake. This is what I hit. You can see it's kind of scratched up here, and that's what broke the exhaust manifold down there. But we got it all back together, and it seems to be working good. So, alrighty, just gonna tell everybody thanks for watching. You know, this is a pretty typical day around here. You guys have seen this old backhoe a ton. It runs good, but it takes a little bit of maintenance. Of course, this little project was self-inflicted, but you know, this old equipment will last a long time with a little bit of maintenance and a little TLC. It'll keep going. So I hope this old girl lasts me a long time. It's only got about 3,000 hours on it. You know, these are known to go 9,000-10,000 hours pretty easy. So I hope I live long enough to wear it out. Probably not, though. Thanks for watching, everybody.